Welcome to Godless and Grounded. Human beings have always been storytellers. Thousands of years ago, before writing was even invented, people sat around fires telling tales of gods, spirits, and cosmic battles. These stories were not just entertainment, they were your attempts to explain the unknown. Why does the sun rise? Why does the rain fall? Why do people die? Without science, myths became the answers. But here's the real question. If those myths were created thousands of years ago by people with no understanding of biology, astronomy, or physics, why do so many still cling to them in the age of satellites, DNA sequencing, and artificial intelligence? This is the clash we face today. Sacred myths versus modern minds. Think about it. We carry smartphones in our pockets, devices more powerful than the computers that sent humans to the moon. Yet, at the same time, billions of people still believe that the universe was created in 6 days, that snakes talk to humans, that seas split open, and that gods demanded sacrifices. Isn't it strange that in our most advanced age, the most primitive stories still hold power? Let's take creation myths. Almost every religion has one. The book of Genesis says the world was created in 6 days and that humans came fully formed, created from dust or a rib. But modern science paints a very different picture. The Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. Life evolved slowly, from single-celled organisms to complex species over millions of years. Fossils, DNA evidence, and geological studies all confirm this. We can literally trace our evolutionary cousins, the chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans. Yet many people prefer the ancient myth to the proven reality, simply because it's written in a holy book. Now, let's look at morality. Ancient texts claim that gods gave us laws and rules. But ask yourself, do we really need divine commands to know murder is wrong or that kindness is good? Even societies with no exposure to the Bible, Quran, or Vedas developed moral codes. Why? Because morality is a social necessity, not a divine gift. Communities thrive when cooperation, fairness, and empathy exist. The myth says morality was handed down from above. Modern minds understand it evolved naturally, through human experience and survival. Another sacred myth is the idea that suffering is part of some divine plan. People are told that tragedies, diseases, earthquakes, famine, are tests from God or punishments or ways to build character. But let's be honest, does a child dying of leukemia make sense as part of a cosmic test? Would an all-powerful, all-loving deity really need to test people through random suffering? Modern minds see suffering for what it is: natural causes, accidents, genetic disorders, human negligence. By understanding causes, we can prevent suffering. Vaccines save lives not because of prayers, but because of science. Let's talk about miracles. Myths are full of them. Seas parting, prophets flying into the sky, food appearing from heaven, statues crying blood. But notice something. Miracles are always found in old texts or in rumors, never in front of a global camera. In the age of smartphones, why is it that miracles suddenly went quiet? Why don't amputated limbs regrow after prayers, but minor back pain miraculously disappears? Modern minds demand evidence. Myths survive because they rely on stories passed down, never on verifiable proof. Sacred myths also claim humans are the center of the universe. Ancient people thought the stars were small lights stuck in the sky. They thought the earth was flat, or that it rested on pillars, turtles, or elephants. But now we know. The earth is just one planet among billions, circling one star among billions, in a galaxy among billions. The universe does not revolve around us. Yet religions still insist humans are the chosen species, designed for a cosmic purpose. Isn't it a little arrogant to think the universe, 93 billion light-years wide, was created for us in our prayers? And let's not forget the myth of eternal reward and punishment. Heaven and hell, two ideas that shaped human behavior for centuries. Be obedient, and you'll enjoy paradise forever. Question or disobey, and you'll burn eternally. But think about it rationally. Does eternal torture fit with the idea of mercy? Would a loving being punish finite mistakes with infinite suffering? Modern justice systems don't even support that logic. The myth of heaven and hell persists not because it makes sense, but because it's a powerful tool for control. One of the most dangerous myths is that sacred texts are infallible, that they are perfect words from perfect beings. But when we actually read them critically, contradictions jump out. Some say love your neighbor, others command genocide. Some praise peace, others justify slavery. These are not divine truths. They are reflections of the times in which they were written, times of war, patriarchy, tribalism. Modern minds can spot this inconsistency, but myths thrive on the idea that questioning is forbidden. If something were truly flawless, would it need fear and threats to protect it from doubt? Let's look at real-life examples. When a natural disaster happens, many religious leaders call it punishment for sin. After earthquakes, tsunamis, or hurricanes, we hear claims that God was angry about people's behavior. But does this match reality? Natural disasters happen because of tectonic shifts, climate change, or natural forces. They do not target only the wicked. They kill innocent children, animals, and entire communities without discrimination. Science explains disasters. Myths blame them on invisible anger. Another example, medical progress. For centuries, people prayed for healing, but diseases like smallpox were only eradicated because of vaccines, not because of divine intervention. If prayer healed, hospitals would be empty. If faith was enough, religious countries would have the healthiest populations. But data shows otherwise. Nations with more science and less superstition generally have longer lifespans, lower infant mortality, and higher quality of life. Sacred myths often tell us that human life has ultimate meaning only if given by God. Without God, they say, life is pointless. But modern minds know meaning is something we create. A parent finds meaning in raising a child. An artist finds meaning in creation. A scientist finds meaning in discovery. Love, knowledge, and creativity don't need divine stamps to matter. Life doesn't need an external author. It needs living fully and honestly. Now, let's think about progress. Every major leap forward for humanity came not from clinging to myths, but from breaking free of them. The Earth was once thought to be the center of the universe, until Copernicus and Galileo challenged that myth. Disease was thought to be caused by demons, until Pasteur and Koch proved germs were the cause. Lightning was thought to be Zeus's weapon, until Franklin showed it was electricity. At every stage, modern minds pushed back against sacred myths, and every time, humanity benefited. So why do these myths survive? Because they are comfortable. They give simple answers to complex questions. They offer certainty in a world full of uncertainty. They promise justice in a world that often feels unjust. They feed the human desire for meaning and control. But comfort does not equal truth. Myths are security blankets, not explanations. When we cling to sacred myths in the modern age, we pay a heavy price. We delay scientific progress. We divide societies. We justify violence in the name of gods. We deny reality in favor of fantasy. Modern minds, on the other hand, embrace questioning, evidence, and progress. They don't need sacred stories to find wonder. The universe itself is awe-inspiring enough. And here's something to think about. Even the people who cling to myths don't actually live by them consistently. Farmers rely on weather reports, not rain prayers. Pilots trust aerodynamics, not angels, to fly planes. Engineers use mathematics, not sacred verses, to build bridges. We already live modern lives guided by reason, yet many keep one foot stuck in ancient myths. That contradiction shows us the truth. Modern minds already know what works, they just hesitate to admit it fully. Another powerful myth that still lingers is about gender roles. Many sacred texts tell us that men were created first, women were created second, and that women are naturally inferior or made only to serve men. Some texts even blame women for humanity's downfall, like the story of Eve eating the forbidden fruit. These myths shaped cultures for centuries, justifying restrictions on women's rights. But modern minds know better. Biology shows no inherent superiority of men over women. Intelligence, creativity, and leadership aren't determined by gender. And history proves that progress accelerates when both men and women contribute equally. Myths built walls, but modern thinking tears them down. There's also the myth of divine intervention in politics. Leaders throughout history claimed they ruled by God's will. Kings, pharaohs, and emperors demanded obedience because they said heaven had chosen them. Even today, politicians often use religion to justify their actions or to win loyalty. But look closer. Every empire, no matter how divinely sanctioned, eventually fell. Rome fell, Egypt fell, kingdoms rose and collapsed. If gods were truly guiding rulers, why do they all end up in the graveyard of history? Modern minds recognize that political power comes from human systems, economics, armies, laws, not divine blessings. Another sacred myth tells us that prayer changes the world. People are told to pray for rain, for jobs, for healing, for peace. And yet, wars rage on, poverty continues, diseases spread, and natural disasters happen regardless of prayer. Millions prayed during pandemics throughout history, from the Black Death to COVID-19, yet people only survived when medicine, hygiene, and science intervened. Studies even show no measurable effect of prayer on medical outcomes when tested under controlled conditions. What does that tell us? That prayer comforts the believer, but it doesn't change reality. Modern minds know action changes the world, not wishful thinking. Now let's consider another dangerous myth, that questioning faith is evil. Sacred traditions often warn that doubt is sin, that skepticism leads to punishment. But think about it. Why would truth fear questions? If something is true, it should withstand any challenge. If it collapses under doubt, then it wasn't true to begin with. Modern minds thrive on questions. Science is built on questioning. Progress happens when someone dares to ask, what if we're wrong? Myths survive only when questions are silenced. Minds grow when questions are welcomed. There's also the myth of exclusivity. Every religion claims to have the only truth, but they all contradict each other. One says there is one God, another says many gods, another says no God but a law of balance. They can't all be right, yet each insists it is. If truth is one, why are there thousands of conflicting religions? Why does your birthplace decide which truth you inherit? Modern minds see the pattern. Religions reflect culture, geography, and history, not universal truth. Think of children. Every child is born curious, asking questions about everything. But in religious households, children are often told what to believe before they even know how to think critically. They inherit myths not by choice, but by conditioning. Imagine if instead of teaching myths as unquestionable facts, we taught children how to think, not what to think. Imagine if kids learned evidence, reasoning, and empathy instead of fear, guilt, and blind obedience. That is the power of a modern mind, freedom from imposed myths. And consider how myths treat knowledge itself. In many traditions, the pursuit of knowledge beyond sacred limits is considered dangerous. Adam and Eve are punished for eating the fruit of knowledge. Prometheus is punished for giving humans fire. Curiosity is often labeled as rebellion. But what has knowledge actually done for humanity? It has doubled life expectancy. It has given us electricity, vaccines, communication across the globe, and the ability to explore space. If knowledge was forbidden, then why does it make our lives better? Modern minds see that myths demonize knowledge because knowledge breaks chains. Once you know, you can't be controlled by fear. Another important myth is the idea that morality requires religion. People say without God, there is no right or wrong. But let's test that. If morality only came from religion, then atheists or secular societies should be chaotic and violent. Yet data shows the opposite. Countries with higher secularism often have lower crime rates, higher education, and stronger protections for human rights. Meanwhile, countries that enforce strict religion often suffer from oppression, inequality, and violence. Morality is not a divine gift, it's a human achievement. We don't need myths to tell us empathy matters. Our shared humanity already teaches us that. Now let's talk about death, one of the greatest drivers of myth. Ancient people, terrified of mortality, created stories of afterlife, heavens, hells, reincarnations. These myths comforted them, giving hope that death wasn't the end. But here's the truth. No one has returned from death with evidence of an afterlife. Near-death experiences, often cited as proof, can be explained by brain chemistry under stress. The comforting story doesn't change the reality. Modern minds don't need eternal fantasies to find peace. We find peace in knowing our time is limited, which makes it precious. Meaning doesn't come from eternal life. It comes from the way we live this one. And perhaps the most striking clash between myth and modern mind is about the universe itself. Ancient myths describe the cosmos as small, human-centered, controlled by deities. But modern astronomy reveals a universe far grander, stranger, and more awe-inspiring than any myth imagined. Galaxies colliding, stars being born, black holes bending time. Isn't it ironic? Myths tried to make the universe magical, but reality turned out to be far more astonishing. Modern minds can stand in awe of the real universe without inventing stories to make it smaller and more human-centered. So, what do we see when we put sacred myths against modern minds? We see that myths were humanity's first attempt at understanding. They were valuable in their time, but they were guesses, not truths. Modern minds honor that human creativity, but refuse to stay trapped in it. Clinging to ancient myths today is like refusing to upgrade from a stone tool when steel is available. We don't dishonor our ancestors by moving forward. We honor them by continuing the journey they began, using better knowledge. And let's be clear, rejecting myths doesn't mean rejecting wonder, or community, or meaning. It means finding those things in reality, not fantasy. It means appreciating sunsets because of light scattering, not because of divine paintbrushes. It means valuing kindness because it helps people, not because it earns heavenly rewards. It means loving truth more than comfort. At the end of the day, the question is simple. Do we want to live in a world guided by sacred myths or by modern minds? Do we want to keep dragging the past into the present, or do we want to walk into the future with eyes open, guided by reason, compassion, and evidence? Sacred myths gave humanity stories. Modern minds give humanity progress. The choice is ours. Thank you for watching Godless and Grounded. If you want more rational, critical, and fearless thinking, visit the channel again. Together, we'll keep questioning, keep reasoning, and keep pushing forward. Because truth doesn't need protection. It only needs minds willing to seek it.